Hello everyone, today we're going to be figuring out what is the best freestyle prop. So I've had a few sets of props sitting in my drone bag for a while, and I finally got around to testing them out back to back with my favorite prop. So we're going to be using my custom drone frame, the Tubular Quad V6, which has tubes for arms to conduct this test, and I'm going to be putting my long-standing favorite, the Ethix K2 6x4x2, up against the HQ 6x2.5x3 and the DAL Fold 6x4.8x3. Now you may have noticed that we're trying to find the best freestyle prop, but there are no 5-inch props in this comparison. And you may also have noticed that I have quite the oddball setup, kind of a one-off custom frame. So if you want to know more about why my setup is so different than seemingly everyone else's, let me know down in the comments and I can make that video. But long story short, I've flown plenty of dialed in 5-inch quads with good 5-inch props, and they just don't perform the same as the equivalent 6-inch drone. I've just found that 6-inch props generally have better speed, better grip, better efficiency, and have this effortlessness that 5-inch quads just don't have. So without further ado, let's talk a little bit about the design of these props, starting with the Ethix K2. This is a 2-blade prop, and the blades are pretty thick with a relatively aggressive scoop towards the hub, and they taper out and get less aggressive towards the tip. And at the very tip, there is a squared off trailing edge, which I assume is to help with the wingtip vortices. This prop weighs 5.1 grams as advertised, and I weighed it at 5.16 grams. Up next is the HQ 6x2.5x3. This has much thinner blades compared to the Ethix K2, and they don't taper quite as much just because they're kind of thin the entire length. The scoop is not very aggressive. This is a low pitch prop at 2.5, and it has kind of the same squared off trailing edge at the tips of the blades. This prop weighs 5.3 grams as advertised. I weighed it at 5.48 grams. So pretty light for a tri-blade. Lastly is the DAL Fold F6. Obviously the big design difference with this prop is that the blades can fold, and it has this hub in the middle that allows the blades to fold individually. This has a somewhat aggressive scoop towards the hub, but the blade is relatively thin. It does taper out towards the tip, and at the tips it's just kind of rounded all the way around. There's no squared off trailing edge or anything like that. This prop weighs 5.6 grams as advertised, and I weighed it at 5.33 grams. And I think that's because they're on like the version 2 or 3, and this I think is the version 1. At least looking at the images, I don't think the blades themselves are any different. I think they've just tweaked the hub design. So how do these props perform? Let's start with my long-standing favorite, the Ethix K2. This prop just kind of exemplifies why I like 6-inch twin blades so much. It has good top speed, it has good grip, it has decent control feel, and it has very good efficiency. I usually get high 3-minute to low 4-minute flight times with my normal freestyle flying, and the durability is also pretty good because it has these pretty thick blades. Let's move on to the HQ 6x2.5x3. When I first took off with this prop, I immediately crashed back into the grass because this is a slow prop. The 2.5 pitch kind of indicates that, but it's definitely slow. I had to use a ton of throttle just trying to go somewhat the same speed as the Ethix K2. Because I was using so much throttle, this prop was not very efficient for me, at least at higher speeds. This is the first time in years that I've gotten less than a 3-minute flight time on a 4S 1300. That is how bad the efficiency of this prop is, at least the way I fly. The one big benefit of this prop is the control is definitely really good. It was very snappy, but that does not outweigh how badly this prop performs in terms of just speed and efficiency. So unfortunately, not a great prop. Also, the durability is not going to be as good as the Ethix K2 because they're the same exact material, but the blades are just not as beefy on the HQ tri-blade. Moving on to the DAL Fold F6 6x4.8x3. The best way I can describe this prop is it performs somewhere in between the HQ tri-blade and the Ethix K2. The control wasn't as snappy as the HQ tri-blade, but not as dull as the Ethix K2. The efficiency was not the greatest, low 3-minute flight times, but not as bad as the HQ tri-blade, which was quite bad. The speed was definitely significantly faster than the HQ tri-blade, but not quite as fast as the Ethix K2. The only question mark here is the durability. Obviously the folding blades are supposed to help with that, but I did not really crash this blade, and the performance in the other areas is not good enough for me to continue flying it to figure out how durable it is. So in conclusion, the Ethix K2 is still my favorite prop. It does everything well. It just seems to have the right balance of speed, grip, power. It has good efficiency. It has decent control. It's kind of this good compromise between all of those performance characteristics, at least for the way I fly. Now I do have alternative recommendations to the Ethix K2 depending on what performance metrics you value, but they're not either of these tri-blades. If you prefer better control and responsiveness and you don't care as much about outright thrust and performance, I would go for the Emax Avan 6x3.8x2. That's a real kind of wispy prop, very responsive, kind of high revving in some ways, and that just gives you that better absolute control feel of the quad, but it's not as fast, not as much grip, and the thin ends of the props mean it's not quite as durable as the Ethix K2. Now on the other end of that, if you don't really care about snappy control feel and you just want to go as fast as possible, maybe you're racing, you just want that outright speed and thrust and grip, I would go with the Gemfan Flash 6042. It doesn't have the best control feel, but boy, that thing is quick and it's still pretty efficient for how fast it goes. So those are my 3 freestyle prop recommendations, and the Ethix K2 kind of falls right between the Emax and the Gemfan props, and this is what I prefer. So I hope you learned something from this video, or at least enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss future videos. And let me know in the comments if you want to learn more about my thought process behind why I like 6-inch so much and why I fly kind of an oddball drone setup. And if you can't get enough of me here on YouTube, I also have an Instagram page, timmy.r.c. Link is in the description. Thanks for watching.